No problem. Usually give it a couple minutes to hopefully get some viewers. If not, we'll just talk.
I didn't know you guys were doing this.
Yeah, we started towards the end of January, I think.
Cool.
Yeah, gotten what have we gotten so far? We've gotten Len, Captain Rich, Mario. We got Marty when he was down here a couple of weeks ago. Got Chris Butler. We got Craig.
Where do you want me to sit?
Right there's fine.
Okay.
Perfect. So we'll give it a couple minutes and then we'll just introduce you, and so that I don't forget to do this.
What ship's that?
This one's the Gearing.
Oh, Gearing class, yeah.
Let's get your name.
My dad was on a destroyer also.
Alright. What's your name?
Andy.
Andy
Woolsey.
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 Alright. And then what was your rank? We'll just add it in there.
I was a Lance Corporal.
So what's the
LCPL.
Alright.
USMC.
There we go.
They don't have that rank in the Army. It's kind of unique to the Marine Corps.
There we go.
Actually, it comes from the old times when a knight was dismounted. He had his lance, but he was on the ground, so now he's a Lance Corporal. He was on the ground. When I was in the Philippines, they had these, we got Clark Air Force Base TV. Mm-hmm. They had these weird little commercials on there. And this has been another moment of your military heritage. and they give these little snippets, you know, you're like, never do that.
Yeah.
Weird.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we got the IO in here.
Oh, yeah. There we go. Now, my dad was on, I don't know what class destroyer he was on. He was on Buckley. It's made towards the end of the war. Actually, there's two Buckleys. There's a destroyer escort named Buckley, and there's a DDR 808 that's Buckley.
D-51? Destroyer escort?
That's a smaller ship. Yeah. And it's got its own class, but my dad was on the Dennis J.
There we go. So,
yeah.
There's two of them. Cancelled. Okay, so
yeah.
This one.
And
Gearing class, so it is that same kind.
Yeah, okay.
Awesome.
I get them confused. I don't know which class is which.
Yeah.
My dad does. See, the destroyer escorts were a smaller ship, less displacement, whereas the DDR was a full-on DD with a air search radar on it.
All right. So what we do is when we start is you introduce yourself. You know, give your name, your rank, service.
Okay.
And then you can just start talking whatever about your service. You know, how you got into the Marines.
Okay.
What you did, and then we can talk about the stuff you do here with radio.
Sure.
All right. So go ahead.
Okay. My name's Andy Woolsey. I was a Lance Corporal in the Marine Corps from 1989 to 1993. I was a field radio operator with 1st Battalion, 4th Marines, assigned to a line company from headquarters. And so I spent 2 deployments, including Desert Shield and Desert Storm, with Bravo Company as their primary radio operator. I was in charge of all comms at the company while in the rear and deployed. We were deployed on a separate ship because we deployed with amphibious assault vehicles. And so that put me in a unique position to be away from my unit, and I had to head up their comm there, so I was kind of by myself. So I was able to cultivate relationships because I volunteered in radio with the Navy, because I was bored, and decided to get different experience. Because of that, I could use the Navy personnel to help maintain my field gear, because I was not an electronics technician, and so that was a good relationship. You know, I found out in life that you get by better when you cultivate good relationships. So it's one of the things I like about being here on ship. So.
Yeah. Cool. So here on the ship, what do you do?
I work with the radio department, which has 2 groups. There is BIARA, Battleship Iowa Amateur Radio Association, headed up by Doug Dowds, and they're responsible for talking to the world via amateur radio about the Iowa. And I specifically work with the Gray Radio Gang and the engineering design team, and predominantly work on the Gray Radio side, where we work with the ship's original equipment. We call it legacy equipment. And we're responsible for refurbishing it, maintaining it, and operating it for various events so that people can see the importance of radio, how important it was to the Iowa in our command and control role, and see what it took to send a message out and to receive a message. A little harder than you do on your cell phone.
Yeah.
And in today's high-tech world, they don't realize, it's easy to forget, and some people have never experienced what it takes to operate this type of communications equipment. It's pretty complicated, and there's a lot of moving parts. And there was a lot of trained people here on board at one time that maintained it and operated it. And we in GRG are responsible for trying to bring that to people and help Iowa in our role as a museum and educating the public.
Cool. So when did radio get here? Because have you guys been here since the ship got here, or was it a little bit later?
When the ship first arrived here, I think in 2012, there was a few radio guys, Doug Dowds being one of them, Gary Berry being the other one, and Gary Berry has been pretty much responsible for really being interested in the legacy equipment. Yeah. Doug Dowds has focused on the amateur radio side, which is great. He's doing an awesome job. But Gary has done a great job at wanting to put a focal point on communications, so it's not just a static display that people walk by on a tour. Because you can go on other vessels and see the same type of comm equipment, but it's silent. They don't know what it does and why it did it. Yeah. And that's what we're here to do. So.
Okay. And then legacy equipment. So how old is that equipment? Is it 80s or is it World War II?
Most of the equipment most of the communications on board was installed before the last commissioning period. Okay. So in the 80s, and most of it's contemporary for that time. Some of the stuff actually dates back, has been in service in the military even in the 60s, like the teletype equipment. Yeah. But for the most part, most of that stuff is all contemporary during the 80s.
80s. Okay.
Yeah. We only have like one piece of equipment that was, I think it was donated, but it was left over from World War II.
USS Iowa
no receiver.
Okay.
And we'd like to actually get a station set up eventually, so people could see what a World War II station kind of looks like.
Yeah, see the difference.
And you could see them on other battleships like the Alabama and so on, because they're set up for World War II still. But not here. So it'd be nice to give people a compare and contrast.
Yeah, see the difference and leaps in technology.
Yeah, absolutely, because we've got rudimentary word processors that were involved in and communications computers that were pretty slow by today's standards. But they help filter messages into the ship, so the ship would only print out on their teletype printers what was addressed to the ship. And they could send out in a burst transmission via their satellite transceivers to wherever they need to go. And so the computers were made their presence in the 80s. And so they're slow, but they did the job.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I've walked by there many times, especially during the overnights, but I haven't had a chance to sit down when you guys are in there and maybe look at everything. Well, so I definitely want to take the time someday to go in there and check it all out.
We're always happy to have people come through and ask as many questions as they want. I should have an answer. If I don't, there's a lot of other guys way smarter than me in there that do have answers, and we should be able to get you sorted out.
So how big are you guys right now? Like, how many people are involved in the two groups?
BR has over 30 members, I think, on the books, and we usually get on Wednesdays when we all come in. That's our communications day usually, unless we have a special event.
Yeah.
And we usually get probably 5 to 8 guys in BR that come in, and in Gray Radio we usually get about 5 to 8 guys also. on our side of the house that come in to work specifically with the legacy equipment.
That's awesome. What are your like current projects? What stuff are you guys working on?
Okay, that's exciting right now. Everything we do when we get something, or when we achieve a level of functionality in radio, is like a milestone, because it's basically the first time something's done something since 1990.
Yeah.
And so we've got when we first start a couple years ago when I came on board, we made the first during Museum Ships Weekend, we made the first contact on the radio, on the high frequency radios since 1990. We called somebody in Japan.
Wow.
And we also talked to somebody Yokohama, Japan. And we actually talked to somebody in North Shore, New Zealand, and that was pretty momentous. And so that's then. Now we're working on the teletype system, and it's a little bit more complicated. And so you needed somebody with specific expertise, and we have some guys now. One in particular, Joe Fuller, that had his teletype experience in the Air Force, and he's brought his information and his experience to bear, and we're able to receive in teletype messages on our printers, and we're very close, probably within a week or so of getting the transmit side going. We're
awesome.
It's just a matter of tweaking something.
Yeah.
So we're right there. So we're probably a week or two away from getting full transmit and receive on our teletypes. The problem we have is we got to get some guys organized on the outside to be able to dial their computer up on their amateur radio to be able to send at the correct speed. Because right now we don't have we're government teletypes.
Yeah.
And amateur radio operates at a slower speed. So we got to get them to dial up their baud rates so they can talk to us. But it's just a matter of them tweaking parameters in their computer. So they can talk to our old machines.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. So we're really making leaps and bounds. We the next project we got up ahead, we're trying to get set up is getting somebody to help us install our new flooring that we got donated, and it's very exciting.
Yeah.
Because if you go in the main message center, the radio floor is a little beleaguered. Let's put it that way. And got some special duct tape modifications that I made myself. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And we were gonna make them Christmas colors for Christmas, but I didn't get around to that. Maybe this year.
Yeah.
But so we got to get somebody. We got to get a hold of an installer to help us put that in, because none of us are qualified in putting in that specialized flooring, because it's high voltage anti-static flooring, so it's got to be hooked together with a wire and bonded together correctly.
Yeah.
So that's our next thing. We get that going, it'll look really super slick in there. So, but we're really close. We're looking towards trying to get on the tour route eventually.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So we could get some people in there, get some kids in there, because everybody likes to see things work and listen to things work.
Yeah.
And they'll be able to hear the sights and see the sounds of the equipment going. So very exciting.
Excuse me, I haven't had lunch.
Help yourself.
So is any
good,
other
actually.
museum ship doing anything like that?
There are some of the older museum ships, like the North Carolina and Massachusetts, have working radio equipment, but their stuff's from World War II, which is really neat. They got the. In fact, I think the guy on the Massachusetts actually has a YouTube video of him doing a message with
cool.
Morse code. But as far as this era of equipment, nobody's got the gear that we got.
Yeah.
Some of the others have some of the gear, but the Battleship Iowa was very fortunate in the fact that when she was put in the mothball fleet, that she didn't have a lot of her stuff stripped out. The USS Missouri, her transmitter room is a bare room.
Wow.
Even the racks were taken out.
Yeah.
And so we're pretty blessed to have what we did. That when they first opened her up, when David Canfield and another fellow went in there, Joe went in there to look at the stuff, they were so surprised to see most of the radio equipment still there.
Yeah.
And so we are very fortunate here on Iowa to have what we have. Now, I guess people see it all the time and take it for granted, maybe. We all kind of do when we see things all the time. But it's a real amazing thing, actually. And so then it's hard, actually, to talk to other ships because some ships don't have this stuff. Mm-hmm. So even though there are sister ships, you know, New Jersey, Missouri, and Wisconsin, they don't have the same functionality and they don't have the same access. We're very fortunate here also that the Pacific Battleship Center has been so helpful in letting us be able to develop this side of the ships, so we can educate people about the importance of communication to a naval vessel, and importantly the Iowa, which was a command and control ship, and with radio you can't do that. If you don't have radio, you can't command and control anything. Not very well.
Yeah. No, not very well.
A guy in a rowboat and a message, that's kind of slow.
Yeah.
So.
Very good.
Yeah. So, it's cool. So anytime anybody wants to stop by, too.
Yeah.
And you've been, I see, my second job is at the LA Maritime Museum. I see a lot of you guys come in over there to work in their radio room. So you guys have...
some of our guys do.
Some of you guys have a lot of partnerships going on.
Doug Douch, head of our BR, Battleship Ohio Amateur Radio Association. He's also affiliated with the Maritime Museum, and we do have a maritime radio that it was donated, and we're pretty close to getting it working, and it was really doesn't have a place in our radio shack, you know, in the Iowa's history, but somebody was kind enough to donate it, and so we're trying to get that going, and so it's pretty close to being running fully. It runs a bit, but not exactly the way it should. So because electronics don't like to sit a long time. Some of those components dry out and they don't work anymore. So when you turn it on, you hear a popping sound, a little smoke, and that's usually a bad sign.
The smoke of death.
It's a bad sound and a bad sign.
Yeah.
So feel free. Any other questions?
Let's see.
Usually what we kind of do is just start out a little bit, and hopefully the chat really gets going, and then questions start to pour in.
Let's see if there's at least one person watching.
Which is still one more than 0 people watching.
Yeah, that's right. I didn't even know you guys did this.
Yeah, we got about 3.
Cool.
Yeah, we kind of keep it secret from everyone else.
Yeah.
Not through our... Although we do our best to get it out, but a lot of people watch.
Yeah,
and it'd be a great vehicle with the kids.
Yeah.
I think
exactly.
The kids. This is the younger medium, and I would see kids wouldn't mind engaging in this stuff.
Yeah,
that's another thing we'd like to do. Some of us would like to do in radio is get radio involved in the educational side of the ship, and being able to bring kids in and have them talk on the radio. Maybe it wouldn't be the ship's radio because we don't get them up all the time.
Yeah.
But maybe on the amateur radio and be able to show kids. Everything's software driven anymore. It's all virtual on the screen right here, but most of our equipment is all hardware driven.
Right.
It's just.
I want to talk to Craig about it because
it's good old fashioned electronics,
especially rainy days.
Yeah, especially
if it's a day you guys are here, it'd be great to just do that as a lesson.
As a lab,
and that would be like a 40-minute to an hour time period you could have. But the thing is the size.
Yeah.
We have members.
Yeah.
I'm an odd one because I live in Redlands.
Yeah.
So I'm 80 miles away. But and I also work for a living too, and I'm not retired.
Yeah.
So I shouldn't call you sir then.
And don't please. It's my dad, but he ain't here. But there's people in the area that would probably be willing to come in and talk to the kids about radio. In fact, we've got some people that work in tour that are radio guys, like Jim Nash and John Pakusich, that are very knowledgeable guys, but they're local. There's local guys and a lot of local guys in radio that, if the word went out that they needed some people to maybe give a small presentation about radio and about what it does, they'd be willing. We could even get some of BR. It wouldn't be necessarily a GRG thing either. It would be not just legacy. It would be amateur radio guys from Biora also coming in and letting them operate on the radio or listen to the radio and explaining to them what it does and how it's able to do it. You know, because you can get into basic radio theory, which, you know, it doesn't need to be boring necessarily. You know, it's like the radio wave works like this, and that's why we're able to shoot it up here and bounce it off the sky, and it lands over there, and we can talk to that guy way in the heck over there. You know, doesn't have to get too dry, because it can get dry, but we can keep it interesting for them, you know, and just kind of spark their imagination, because that's why a lot of us got involved in radio a long time ago, is because, you know, you're using something that's pretty, in essence, simple to reach through the air with an electromagnetic wave and talk to somebody else, you know, and it's kind of neat, and we take a lot of it for granted, but this is how it started. You know, this is we're working with the rudiments of how it started, and you know, if you want to build something good, you need to start out with a good foundation. So it'd be neat for kids to see how things are actually put together, and then they can go wherever they want to go.
I'd love to do that and develop like some sort of basic lesson where we can teach them, so that they could hopefully interest them and they want to, you know, get their license and do this on their own in the future.
Because that's what amateur radio, one of the main mandates is why it was around, and it's benefited the country off and on throughout its existence, providing a group of people that were knowledgeable in radio and knew how to manipulate the technology. It benefited them during a few of the wars, with personnel that was actually knowledgeable in radio, because they had developed their knowledge before they even went in the military, back in the early days of radio. And it's there for experimentation, so you could tweak it, play with it, and have fun with it, you know. I know a guy that just moved to Colorado. He was in our group, and he spent a lifetime of, that's what they do. He said he lived in an apartment building, and he got to use the roof. And he made different antenna configurations on the roof. Like, he made an antenna like this, and then we'd change where the feed line went to see how it changed the propagation, you know, and see, hey, I was able to talk to this guy today, and I got that guy when I changed this, you know. So, you know, they're able to experiment and see how modifying this can change what they're able to do, their functionality.
Nice.
And it's not manipulating code or programs. It's just switching this over to here and seeing what happened. So it's pretty neat. There's a catapult.
I am doing so terrible with
have you seen a video of the one that was launching?
The catapults?
The Kingfisher?
No.
I found one on YouTube. There's a actual video. I think it's of this ship, and they swing this catapult around, and they launched it that way.
Oh, wow. So they pitch in.
They can go either way.
Oh, okay.
Evidently, because I saw it go out like this, and cock back like this, and launch across. Actually, it was this one. I think it was this one here, and went like that, and it shot off that side, and off starboard side, and pretty cool. And I saw a picture, and they had 3 of them. They had one in one catapult, one in the other, and one in reserve.
Nice.
And of course, then they were retrieved with that crane, which was pretty crazy, because the ocean's pitched. You know, it's pitched around on top of the ocean. It's a plane, so it's light. It's pitched around the ocean, so the guy's on top of the plane, grabbing the hook off the crane to fish it in there without getting knocked off. You know, so that's pretty hairy. I mean, they did it all the time. In fact, they had a guy that was injured.
Wow.
They pulled him in, but he was in the rear seat. They helped him across the wing. There was a ladder. They helped him down the catapult onto the deck. They had the corpsman waiting with a stretcher, took him down below and into the hospital. Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Well, given how crazy that would be, I'm honestly surprised that only one person got injured.
Oh, yeah. But I don't know if that was the spotter and he got shot.
Yeah,
it's more than likely.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. But yeah, the Kingfisher was made by Vout, or Vought, V-O-U-G-H-T. Same one that made the it was one of the companies that made the F4U Corsair.
The best plane that ever was.
In my
If you
opinion.
disagree, fight me.
No, it's been one of my favorite planes since the beginning.
Hey, man.
When I was a little kid, I liked the P-40 because that was in the movie Flying Tigers with John Wayne. But the P-40 is actually interesting because the same engine that was in the P-40 they put in the P-51 Mustang, and it was not very good. A very lackluster performance until they put the Rolls-Royce Merlin Rolls-Royce engine into from the Spitfire into the P-51, and then the performance went, and then it became the plane it is. It's the legendary plane it is today.
Yep.
So it's like the sports car of the sky. But there were a lot of cool planes back then. I mean, the
Dauntless.
There was the P-38.
Yeah.
You know,
That just looked cool.
yeah, they were way cool. So, in fact, they have a whole hangar devoted to one particular unit at the Chino Air Museum. And Planes of Fame Air Museum in Chino Airport. They have an entire hangar devoted to the P-38 and one particular flying wing.
Wow.
And very cool. And they even, when they dedicated, they even had some of the original members there dedicating it. And I think most of those fellas are passed now. But very cool. That's a cool museum to go to if you've never been out there. Every year in May, we got the big air show coming up there.
Yep.
If you want to see an incredible array of warbirds, that's like my wife and I were walking a few years ago across the tarmac there, and I was getting a hot dog or something, and I looked up and I saw an F-86 Sabre jet chasing a MiG, like during Korea, across the sky. I'm like, that's cool, and that was cool. And you get to see crazy things like that.
Yeah.
You're like,
did you see that?
I saw a whole bunch of TBMs taxiing out like a flight, like they were going to go catch their aircraft carrier. And I'm like, that's so cool. There's like 5 of them.
Yeah.
Did you see their 262?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's bought. I don't think it exists there anymore.
Oh.
Some guy in Seattle bought it. Some big computer dude with a lot of money.
The one and only flying ME-262 left in the world?
He took it. Goofball. But
Must have been a lot of money.
Yeah.
Well, those guys have a lot of money.
Yeah.
But anyways, very cool plane. Doesn't look like it belonged in the. Doesn't look like it was designed in the late 30s and flown in the early 40s.
No.
Does not. You look at that twin engine design, you're like, this was made in the 40s? Yes. And if you study about how it was made, in secret, in caves, in the woods, rolled out in secrecy, made by slave labor.
Yep.
And incredible. They had trouble with landing gear because nobody had ever flown a jet before. So it was fast and heavy. So when they landed, they were cracking up the landing gear. So they had to beef up the landing gear. And they had to learn how to fly a jet airplane.
Yeah.
It's not their fault. Nobody had ever had one before. So, and then the Japanese had their own jet. They had a few of them. They had a twin engine jet, but it was smaller. And you know how they built it? From a picture they saw, the 262.
Yeah.
Now, that's ingenuity.
Yeah.
You got to get those guys. Now, they were supposed to get actual plans and schematics, I guess, from the Germans in a U-boat, and it got captured.
Yeah, I got some.
So they just went ahead and said,
Screw it.
we can figure that out. Can you do that? Yeah, we could do that. What is the interesting thing about the Japanese, it seemed like they're very, they had a lot, they were willing to try things.
Yeah.
And,
that no one in their right mind would try.
But they were able to do some pretty amazing things. Sometimes it was a little bit too late.
Yeah.
And, too little too late, but, they were able to the super sub that they came up with. You hear about that? It was 2 submarines put together with a pod on top of it that had 5 seaplanes inside.
Yeah.
And they launched 2 out here off the coast of the United States. Here, and they tried to bomb an oil field out here, and they tried to firebomb woods up in Oregon. Now, what they should have done is just flown a little farther and just dropped a match down in the San Bernardino Mountains. They could set the whole thing on fire. Then you could have thrown a cigarette out the window. You wouldn't even have to drop a bomb.
Pretty much.
Yeah,
You bombed the wrong woods.
As Danny continues to explode horribly.
I'm doing terrible with battleships. I got used to the destroyers because that's how I'd been playing.
You didn't want to trade or something?
My dad said they had on the destroyer they had to do a thing called plane watch, and so when the aircraft carriers were doing flight ops, they had to be on plane guard behind the aircraft carrier.
Yeah.
So on those old tin cans, they were just getting bounced around the wake of the carrier, and it was just it was horrible duty.
Yeah.
But it would sometimes lead to ice cream.
I don't know. My dad never saw ice cream.
Oh, I guess your dad was never lucky. So, yeah, the destroyers would ransom pilots back to their carriers for ice cream.
That's a good idea.
Because they weren't deemed important enough for their own machines. I heard the most ice cream paid for a single man was 25 gallons.
I don't even know where they put it on a tin can. They don't have the storage that big.
They ate it all.
Exactly. And 15 of those gallons probably went to the Chiefs' mess.
I'm sure.
Because on my ship, the only people that had ice cream were the Chiefs.
Yeah. So back to your service then. What ships did you serve?
I was on. I did 2 deployments. My first deployment was on the USS Cayuga, LST 1186, and she was home ported out of Long Beach, right over here.
Oh, okay.
And so my first ship was right out of here. I remember steaming past the breakwater, and actually not steam. We were diesel. We had 6 Alco diesel engines. I think each engine developed 3,200 horsepower, kind of like a locomotive that was operated in a yard, switching yard. But the marine version a little bit beefier. Nice. We had 4 engines that worked all the time, 2 that generally didn't, and sometimes the 4th one wouldn't work. And we usually kept a speed of advance of about 13 knots. So I always say I was on one of the slow boats to China. Literally, it took us about a month to get here from there. From here.
Oof.
So you calculate the distance from here to Subic Bay, and then divide that by 15 miles an hour, and you see about where you get. It's a long time. They didn't even let us see the Hawaii. We passed a little bit too far north, and they wouldn't even let us see that. Oh, what? They could at least let us see land a little bit.
just to tease.
No,
Just
I always said I felt like Kevin Costner in Waterworld. Does land really exist, or is it just a dream? It's just my imagination. But one of my favorite times was at sea. I love being in the ocean. The ocean's amazing. My second ship was the LST 1185 USS Schenectady. Schenectady is now at the bottom of the ocean off the coast of Hawaii as a artificial reef, courtesy of the Air Force and a smart bomb. And you can watch it blow up on YouTube if you want to. You just put in Schenectady and smart bomb, and you can watch it get blown up.
Well, glad to see that the Air Force is improving.
Yeah.
One of our previous interviews, we were talking about Nevada off at Bikini and how the Air Force missed twice.
Oh, the nuclear detonations at the Bikini Atoll.
Yep.
Yeah. That one carrier, they said, what's the name of it? It was a full combat load. It had airplanes and everything on board. That nuclear bomb launched it straight up in the air, 65 feet.
Wow.
A full carrier. I mean, it's not as big as like an Nimitz class, but it's still a big ship.
Yeah.
Went up, hit the deck, and then cracked.
Yeah.
And sunk straight down. It's got a big rift in the deck to this day.
Yeesh.
And all the stuff on board. Planes, everything. But, they had a whole simulated fleet out there with a close nuclear detonation. You see what it did? Well, they died.
Yeah.
That's what happened. But, so my first ship actually was sold to Brazil. And became, ceased being the USS Cayuga and became the Matoso Maya. And SG-23, something like that, and I think it was either that or the San Bernardino, one of the old LSTs that actually came up and helped us during Katrina.
Nice.
They're cool ships because they can actually land on the beach. What's neat about them?
Yeah.
They're over 500 feet long, but they can actually got a flat bottom. They've got a hull shaped like a bathtub, and which isn't very good for being out at sea.
No.
So you do a lot of this, even in good water. In bad water, it gets fun. I got pictures, and it's pretty crazy. But you can snug that right up on the shore and offload. You can dog down all kinds of trucks and equipment on the main deck.
Mm-hmm.
And you can store all kinds of equipment in the tank deck or the armored deck where we keep amphibious assault vehicles.
Nice.
Or tanks. You could go down there, but of course, unless they're amphibious, they would have to be offloaded on the ground. Obviously, unless you want to create boat anchors,
More reefs.
moorings. It'd be a great mooring. Yeah, it wouldn't go anywhere. But so they're very versatile ships, little workhorses. They're it's kind of too bad we don't have them anymore because they're kind of handy if you got to get stuff like when Puerto Rico got hit recently.
Yeah.
It'd be great to just snug one right up on the beach and you could dump all kinds of stuff off, trucks, medical aid, containers, whatever. No, they sold them all, and I don't think we have hardly any in inventory, even in mothball fleet. I think they scrapped the rest of them, and I would like to get one in museum service, but there's only one LST in museum service that I know of. It's a World War II type, and it's up in Indiana on the river. So because they have a shallow draft, so it
Makes
can go
sense.
up a river, But very cool. I enjoyed my time on ship. I unlike some Marines, I didn't mind working with the Navy. Everybody's got their job to do, and everybody does it, just not the same way.
It's true.
And so everybody's got different protocols and standards that they use. Marines, ours are pretty strict.
Yeah.
But they have to be for the mission we usually have to do. And the Navy is equally competent at their job, but it's just a different mindset, and it works for them. And like I told the Navy guy when I was in, I don't care what you look like. I don't care that your guts hanging over your trousers, that your uniform looks like you pulled it out of a sea bag, and long as you can keep this ship going in the right direction, I'm fine with it. You do what you got to do, however you got to do it, and if it works for you guys, I'm good. I don't care if your stuff's starched or even pressed a little bit. It's okay, man. And like in every group, there was guys that were not very clean and sharp, and there was guys that were. I mean, there were some real squared away guys I met in the Navy.
Nice.
And we had one of our young lieutenants. He was one of the youngest officers of the deck we had that was fully qualified, and he was as squared away as anybody I ever met in the Marine Corps.
Wow.
And definitely competent at his job. He was a solid officer, and a nice guy.
Good.
Some officers have a tendency to be a bit loose, and I know they do it because you got to keep a certain amount of like a managerial separation with people you're in charge of. But he was able to do it pretty well.
Good.
And I remember one guy was getting pretty loose with him. He said, "Hey, gotta throw a sir in there every now and again, okay, in case the skipper walks in." I laughed, but he was pretty mellow about it. He didn't get on his high horse or feel like his authority was being threatened. So what game is this?
World of Warships.
World of Warships.
World of Warships.
Wow.
As Danny dies again.
Yeah, I'm doing so terrible right now. I'm too distracted. I'm actually paying attention.
Do you want to swap off?
Huh? Sure, if you want to play.
Sure. All right.
So do you engage other people on this?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so it's like other role-playing games, or
Yeah.
my nephew plays combat games with other people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I see these little kids on there and people with mohawks and
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we do what we can.
I laugh. It's pretty hilarious.
Yeah.
The combat games really crack me up because the guys are just doing really silly things.
Yeah.
And Of course, not all of them have the benefit of actual combat training.
Yeah,
but
That's true.
So it's kind of funny, it's like, you did win.
Well,
You don't get another life in real life, right?
Yeah.
You just went into a courtyard. You know there could be an enemy there, and up here, and on the other side of that car right there, and in the car. Oof. You just walk right out there. It's like,
Yeah.
good luck.
Well, good thing it's not real life then.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Real life is horrible, and we play games, but it's serious, and when you're in that environment, you have to you try to not be so serious about it, because the reality is really horrible.
Yeah.
And it can get horrible, and so. But that's what it takes to defend our country and our way of life. It's not always fun. As a country, we've always lived in a pretty rough neighborhood.
Yep.
Globally, not everybody's real friendly. Like in every group of people, I always think it's like schoolyard mentality.
Yeah.
There's always a couple bullies around that are trying to stir it up and make problems for everybody else.
Yeah.
And you either have to stand up and present a strong presence, or they're going to just steal your money or beat you up, or both.
Yeah.
And that's what, and the world's kind of the same way, because countries act like people, because people are made up of countries.
Yeah.
Countries are made up of people, rather.
Yeah. One of the most insightful comments I ever got from my history teacher was that countries act like little children.
Because people get prideful and they get selfish, and that's when they start acting like little kids. And it's all about me. And so that's why we have ships.
That's why we have warships.
That's why we have warships. That's why we have airplanes.
So, speaking of scary and stuff like that, scariest moment, situation during your service, as well as maybe your favorite or the funniest, different.
Well, I think one of the most sobering moments was when we got on station during prep for the final assault on Kuwait City, and we said, okay, we're going to get the warning order any moment now, and then we waited on pins and needles for 2 weeks with nothing but our skivvies and an extra pair of skivvies and our shaving kit, and everything else was in a sea bag ready to get shipped home with our name on it, along with us. And so that was a sobering moment. That's when you get your act together. And get your head squared away, and some people didn't handle it very well. And I think and another scary moment was scary fun was when I was in my first big storm on that LST, and man, that was incredible. I mean, I had my Lieutenant Dan moment out there screaming at the storm, screaming at God, but it was awesome. I remember thinking, standing on the signal bridge of the ship, looking up at the swell that was up there, and going, holy crap.
Yeah.
We could die right now. And it would be cool. Holy crap. It was amazing.
What was that?
Oh.
Somebody's playing with the phone down in MS.
Oh.
Some gomer.
Do you want to swap the channel? Or something?
That helps.
I don't know if it helps either.
No, they could still select it.
All right.
We got Gomers up on the bridge too. That the ring radio.
Oh.
If you see the movie In Harm's Way with John Wayne, he's supposed to be on a cruiser. They have that on there. And they get him. They hear it. Whoop, whoop. I'm like, that's pretty cool. It's pretty accurate.
Hey.
Hollywood got it right.
For once.
They do occasionally. Full Metal Jacket being one of my favorite movies, especially the first part, because to me, and I think a lot of Marines agree, that the boot camp scene with Arlie Army is probably one of the more accurate depictions of Marine Corps boot camp there is. Very close. I would say 95, 98%. Somewhere in there. Thing that differs because of the movie is because they focus on Arlie Army's character the whole time in boot camp. And usually in boot camp, you have 3 or 4 drill instructors at various times, and some all together that are conducting your training. Yeah. Right. So it's not just the senior drill instructor. You've got 2 or 3 junior drill instructors that are there as well, and also play prominent parts. I mean, and when I was in boot camp, we had 1 senior and 3 juniors, and the senior was Staff Sergeant Gates, and we had junior drill instructor, Staff Sergeant Bloodworth, Sergeant Burns, and Staff Sergeant Martinez, and they and they all played a part. But in the movie, they just wanted to focus on the relationship between Arlie Army's character and the recruits,
right?
And he had been a drill instructor, so he didn't have to act. He knew that, that was all coming out of his head.
It's funny because that's the story, right, in the movie, that he was trying to instruct the actor that was going to be the drill sergeant, and
he was doing a better job than he was, so they said, "You'll do it."
You do it,
So he's like, "Sure."
The guy was supposed to be the drill instructor was the one.
I don't even know who it was.
When they go to Vietnam, and there's the guy, the helicopter gunner, that says everyone who runs is a VC, everyone who stays is a brave VC.
Yeah.
He was the one who was supposed to be the drill instructor.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Arlie Army got out of the Marine Corps as staff sergeant on a medical, and he stayed in the Philippines. He played a token American military guy in some of their little movies, and then he got the call later on for Full Metal Jacket as a technical advisor, and ended up as the senior drill instructor.
Nice.
But when he's talking in there and yelling at the privates, it's just, I don't know about the other Marines, but it sends a chill up my back because I can see it in my head, I can hear it in my ears, and I'm like, oh, holy, wow.
Yep.
That takes you back. It's like, whoa. Because you can imagine being there. You remember being there, standing there going, oh my God, what did I do?
Yeah.
You're so dumb.
It's like I that moment of I've made a huge mistake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember I was in receiving barracks at MCRD San Diego, and I remember standing in front of my rack, fixing the corner, a hospital corner, and I was staring at the rack because I had the upper rack, and I remember staring at it going, you must have been out of your mind. You must have been out of your friggin' mind. I'm like, what in the world were you thinking? Just shaking my head, looking at that rack, going, you're an idiot. You got 4 years of this. Good job. Way to go.
Oops.
Yeah. My older brother, his father-in-law, kept telling me, Andy, go in the Air Force. Go in the Air Force. And I should have listened to him. But, but no, the Marine Corps was good for me. It was exactly what I needed. And, so I always tell people, if you want job experience, you want college money, you want veterans benefits, you want all those goodies and all that stuff, go in the Air Force. If you want to be a Marine, if that's what you want to do, and you want to have a hard 4 to 6 years or longer, and do the hard job, then that's what you do. Then go to the Marine Corps, because it's a rough place.
Yeah.
It's an odd group of fruits and nuts, but that's what it takes.
Yeah. It's one way to.
It's a hard way of life, and it is a way of life. You know, the Army talks about being a professional soldier. The Marines, it's not a job. It's like a calling. It's a way of life. It's almost like a cult. You know, I mean, this is what you are.
Yeah.
It's not just your job. It's not a job. It's how you live, how you conduct yourself, and that's why former Marines are usually different than former anybody else. I mean, it's so much part of our identity. You know, that's why I always say there's never no such thing generally as an ex-Marine. It's the former Marine.
Right.
You know, we're just not currently on orders.
Yeah.
And not that I would ever want to go back in again.
Yeah.
Not at my age and being a tad bit overweight. I'd probably cough out a lung, but but no, I'm glad I did it. Absolutely. I'm glad I got to go aboard ship. Glad I got to see this side of it. Glad I got to go to a lot of interesting places in the world.
Nice.
The relationships you have on ship are interesting too, and in the military in general. You know, you get to meet a lot of different people. Kind of like on this ship, you know, you get to meet a lot of different people. But in the military, you're meeting people from all over the country, sometimes all over the world.
Right.
Some of the guys I was in the Marines with a guy from Canada, one of the nicest guys you ever want to meet, and you're like, why are you here? You're such a nice guy.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be here. You should have went in the Canadian Air Force or something.
Yeah.
You know, been a guidance counselor. You're a nice guy. You know, I couldn't imagine why he was there. And he's like, yeah, I wanted to go in the French Foreign Legion, but I found out after research that it was pretty tough, so I joined the Marine Corps. I'm like, oh yeah? He said, yeah, the first 2 years you do road work for 2 years in Northern Africa. I'm like, yeah, that's not good. But,
all right, well, whatever floats his boat, I guess.
Yeah, and then I met a guy from that had been in the Royal Army.
Wow.
And his mom moved here after he got out of the Army, and he came here and joined the Marine Corps. I'm like, what is the matter with you?
Glutton for punishment.
You didn't have enough of that when you were in the, because he was on a recon team in the British Army when they were sitting there assisting like police in watching an IRA safe house or whatever. They're watching people run guns and stuff for the Irish Republican Army.
Wow.
You know, sitting in the bushes looking at a house. I'm like, what? And you went back in?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. But yeah, I met this one kid. His parents were super rich in Nebraska. He had his own airplane. He had a Corvette.
Wow.
I mean, he's probably had more money than any of us put together. And he's the same rank as me. He's just a lowly lance corporal. And he's got more money than our CO. You know, our CO. I'm like, wow. His dad was a doctor. His mom was a criminal defense attorney in Nebraska.
Wow.
He had buddies that's what they did. It was like an Iron Eagle. They'd fly around the country during the summertime with their airplanes.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, it must be tough. I gotta fly around my own airplane. Bummer.
Anything but that.
I know. Like, poor kid. And then you had guys that were so poor that, you know, their folks probably didn't have 2 quarters to rub together most of the time, you know?
Yeah.
And guys from the inner cities that had rough lives. And then me, I'm the kid from the suburbs, you know?
Yeah.
So it was a very interesting place, and you make some interesting relationships. And one thing the Marine Corps really stressed is there was no color. It was all shades of green.
That's true.
That guy's dark green. He's light green. We're all Marines. We all got a job to do. We all need to focus. All that silly stuff you grew up with, you leave that back at home. And you deal with now.
Yeah.
And all the prejudicial stuff and all that things that you were raised with, just stow it. You know, whether you got roughed up by the white cop or whether you were burning a cross in somebody's yard, you know, none of that stuff stays. That goes away. And so I always appreciated that. You know, I'm like, this is how things should be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, just stow that stuff. Let's just stow it and not worry about it. Just treat each other like people. You know, that's what people should do, right? Yeah. Treat each other on an equal level, you know?
Amen.
And I always enjoyed, that was one of the things I really enjoyed about it, was the fact that, you know, all that stuff, you know, just take the silliness away, all the politics away, and we'll just work together, back each other up, and get it done. And that's what we did. And so it was cool.
Amen.
You know, that part of it was good. I really enjoyed that part. One of the things I really enjoy about being here on Iowa is the relationships I have here, the people I get to work with. Great group of guys. I mean, awesome guys. I mean, most of the people I've met here on board, the volunteers, even the paid staff, they're great people. I just enjoy being around here. It's never a work when I come here, because even when you're working, it's not really work. It's fun. I enjoy it. We get stuff done. Maybe not the productivity level you would have at a job, but you know,
good enough, right?
But we are making progress. Like I said, we've got dedicated people in our department that are making progress. We're, you know, each day, if we can make a step forward, you know, it's a good day.
Yeah, it's a good day.
Because we're not on the clock. We're not punching, have to produce 82 units today. We don't have to do that.
Oh yeah.
But we don't even have to be here. But we want to be here. We want to get things done. We all feel passionate about what we're doing here, and that it's a critical part of. We feel it's a critical part of telling the story of the Iowa and what it takes to defend our country. So, without COM, all this stuff would not work. Would be superfluous. It wouldn't matter you had those big guns because you wouldn't know what to shoot at and you wouldn't have any bullets. So. But pretty cool. Yeah. So I think that's the biggest thing is the relationships you have here. I mean, Sue, the head of our volunteer services, is amazing.
Yeah.
And I just marveled at how she's able to keep this herd of cats, as Doug says, rolling, and it's amazing. And she managed to do it. But on a small, like she does, on a small level in the radio, that's what we try to do. We get people with different backgrounds. We've got electrical engineers, electronic engineers. We've got mechanical engineer, technicians. We've got some pretty skilled people with varied backgrounds. But we're able to try and bring people in. We bring them in and say, hey, so what are you interested in? What do you want to do? What are you bringing? What do you want to bring to the table? And we're able to kind of get people plugged in where they want to, and it fills the team out. Where you're able to get things done. It's like, well, that guy knows that stuff, and he knows that, and like me, I don't know a lot of the technical stuff. I know basically how the equipment works. Used to use some of it as an operator, but I didn't get into the technical background, the fixing it. And that kind of stuff. So I'm learning. So it's like, well, if you need me to help you run stuff over here, or hold this, or pull this out, or tell me what to do, and I'll do it. And then we can get things done, because the guy that knows what he's doing, he's only got two hands, and sometimes you need four or six, and so we help each other out. Where one guy has a strength, the rest of our guys help him, and so on and so forth, and then it really makes a good team. And I think the same thing happens all over the ship, and Sue's partially responsible for that, is trying to make sure the right people are plugged in. It's good that Iowa has that sheet on the volunteer form that has, what do you do?
Yeah, there's so many options on
there.
there.
There's like,
and some of us
the options.
Don't check certain things, and because I don't want to come here and weld.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's kind of cool, but I already got a job, and I can't have myself killing myself here.
Yeah.
And doing real heavy work, and then not be ready to actually do my job. It's kind of important, as I haven't figured out to get them to pay me to stay home.
All right.
So.
Yeah, we're coming up at 4 usually when we stop. But any questions?
No questions as far as some comment. Well, we do have some comments, mainly about the movies. One guy was saying a lot of the World War II movies through 1970 or so, they would get their shipboard sound effects just by recording the sounds of the ship they were borrowing the film on, which makes sense. Yeah, use what you got.
Yeah,
and then another good one for getting basic is Stripes. A Bill Murray comedy. But apparently the basic training scenes got the commenters to add flashbacks to the days in Army Basic.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, if you guys ever seen Stripes?
No.
Oh, geez, gotta watch that crazy movie. Bill Murray and his buddy, the same guy that was in that directed Caddyshack.
Yeah.
He was his buddy and was in Ghostbusters with him. Played Egon.
Wow.
That guy. Egon directed Caddyshack. And that movie was out of control. Have you ever seen that? Caddyshack?
No.
I've seen bits and
pieces.
You've
got to watch it.
I gotta watch it.
Yeah. You gotta watch Caddyshack, and you gotta see the documentary they did of behind the scenes. Oh my God. It's the antics that went on behind the scenes is crazier than the movie. I mean, they blew up an actual golf course. in the end of the movie, and it was near a major airport. They didn't say where, and this is right after Vietnam, right?
Oh, God.
So they got pilots, airline pilots that were military, a lot of them, flying in, seeing this plane go blowing up, and they're going like, "Hey, we got a problem over here. This is bad."
Yeah.
But yeah, it's crazy stuff. The hooking up and the drugs behind the scene was worse than on scene. So yeah, a wild movie. But Stripes is very funny. Same group of knuckleheads, but very hilarious.
Nice.
And yeah, them in boot camp is just outrageous. John Candy was in that one as well. They shaved his head. That was funny. And John Candy with a shaved head is not good. But of course, you find out in boot camp, some people with shaved heads is not good either. You're like, ooh. See why you have hair. Wow.
Not anymore.
You're like an unfinished sculpture. You know, it's not good. I thought the head's supposed to be kind of round. But, yeah. And some people's ears are like, like, wow, you can fly to Guam on those. And that comes from Good Morning Vietnam. Robin Williams. You ever seen that?
I have.
Oh God,
Yeah.
that's the best.
Yeah.
His tirades in there when he was on the radio are just as this Robin Williams genius. It's so crazy.
Pretty much any time Robin Williams.
The stuff he comes up with, just right off the top of his head, was just amazing. I mean, you're like, holy crap! Where's he getting all this stuff? But it's pretty amazing. But okay, guys.
Well, all right, Andy.
We about done?
Thank you for joining us, and thank you for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. And we'll see you all next time.
Okay.